This is Amanda, better known as the Southern Mother of Dragons, giving you fandoms from a female perspective because girls nerd out. Hey everyone! Now, don't worry, the Game of Thrones rewatch is still going to occur. I just wanted to take some time and talk about probably my favorite villain of all time, who is coincidentally in my very first fandom, which would be Star Trek, which is not very known about me, but Star Trek The Next Generation was my very first fandom. My mom loves Star Trek, and she showed it to me, and I'm very thankful for that. And kind of what brought this about is I posted a video of me in Mandalorian cosplay, and I was showing off a Grogu I have, and I got a lot of comments about me looking like Seven of Nine, which I did not mind at all, by the way. And that, combined with the fact that I get to meet Jonathan Frakes this summer. And if you don't know who that is Commander William T. Riker of the USS Enterprise, later on the Titan. I get to meet him this summer at a Comic-Con, and I'm incredibly excited about that because I have a press pass. Yeah, that's right. And if you know, you know. I'm not leaving until I get him to call me Imzadi. So it is what it is. But those two things kind of made me think about Star Trek, and something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time are the Borg.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us.
Now, if you don't know who the Borg are, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown and basically tell you why they are the perfect villain that unfortunately has gotten a little played out, but it's okay because there's still a lot that can be said about the Borg. Now, this is going to get pretty geeky, so hold on to your ocular implants. So, the Borg Collective is located primarily in the Delta Quadrant. Now, if you don't know this, there are 4 quadrants that are talked about in Star Trek. Now, I'm not going, too far in the future with this, as in, Discovery. I'm staying right around Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, maybe a little past that. So, we have the Alpha Quadrant, which has part of the United Federation of Planets, which the Enterprise is of. We have the Cardassian Union, and we have the Ferengi. The Beta Quadrant has the bulk of the Klingon Empire and the Romulan Empire. The Gamma Quadrant has the Bajoran wormhole from Deep Space Nine that links the Alpha to the Gamma Quadrant, and the Dominion is there. So, past all of that, we have the Delta Quadrant. Very, very, very far away. The Borg are cybernetic humanoids. They grew by assimilating other species and planets. It's all called the Borg Collective. They're linked together to form a hive mind, and they're obsessed with achieving what they perceive as perfection. So every planet, every group that they assimilate, they take their technology, best science, and all that, and they're working to achieve this perceived perfection. How did the Borg become the Borg? We don't really know. There are bits and pieces of information out there, but what we do have is a statement made by the Borg Queen, which I'll get to that in a moment, to Captain Picard, which is, human. We used to be exactly like them, flawed, weak, organic. But we evolved to include the synthetic. Now we use both to attain perfection. So what we can take from that statement is that they were probably something close to us, and they probably started using cybernetic enhancements, and it went too far, which is a story that is so easily understood because you can imagine it. So it'd be things like technology increases, moves forward, and all of a sudden, you can get little things that enhance you, like something that goes over your eye that allows you to see better than an eagle. That kind of goes to something else that attaches to something, makes it a little better, a little better, a little better, a little better. And you wake up one day and you're half machine. There are some other theories about how the Borg became the Borg. Some of them are pretty far out there, no pun intended. One that I do kind of enjoy is that in Star Trek The Motion Picture, there is an entity causing issues, and it's called Voyager, which is later revealed to be Voyager 6, a 20th century NASA space probe from the Voyager program. It was believed it was lost in a black hole, and the damaged probe was found by an alien race of living machines that interpreted its programming as instructions to learn all that could be learned and return that information to its creator. The machines upgraded the probe to fulfill its mission, and on its journey, the probe gathered so much knowledge that it achieved sentience. Okay, so space probe goes and meets robot people. They upgrade it, become sentient. There is a theory that the living machines were the Borg, or at least some form of the Borg. Now, you did hear me say the Borg Queen was speaking to Picard. Yes, they have a queen. So her whole thing is she brings order to chaos. She can actually act as an individual, and she can transfer herself into other host bodies, which those might be clones. We're not really sure about that. But she issues commands from the central nexus in the Unicomplex, which is a vast connection of Borg ships that's in the heart of their space. So the Queen is the only Borg entity that acts as an individual.
I am the Borg. I am the beginning, the end, the one who is many.
How is a Borg created? Nanoprobes are injected and they create cybernetic implants. Okay? So a Borg comes up to you, a tube comes out, it touches you, those are nanoprobes. They go in your body, and then all of a sudden you have Borg implants coming through your skin. I mean, it's very terrifying. Again, I'm telling you, this is an incredible villain. So the surgical enhancements are usually an eye and an arm. So you become a Borg and you get a new badass Borg eye and a new badass Borg arm with all kind of neat attachments at the end that can do all sorts of things. Now, what's interesting about this is the skin tone becomes like a whitish gray and all hair is lost, giving that newly created Borg a uniform look. So it doesn't matter what species it is. They're all the same color, kind of gray-white, no hair, so they all look alike. Basically, you lose any individuality you had. Why is that so incredibly fascinating and terrifying? Because we learn that you're aware. One of the most terrifying things that you can absolutely think of is being forced to do something and not have control of your own mind or body or both. Now, just to kind of connect this to my regular fandom, I talk a lot about in Game of Thrones, it's mentioned that there's a possibility that something remains when someone is turned into a white/zombie. When Craster is talking to G.R. Mormont, G.R. tells him that the Night's Watchman that attacked him knew what room to go to. And he's basically saying, I don't know how much, but something remains. We also get a possibility of that when you read the Varamir Sixskins prologue, because Thistle is a wildling that Varamir tries to warg into. And it's not 100%, but he does say she sees me. So, again, kind of makes you wonder. As far as the show, that would be incredibly heartbreaking if that were true, because we have the Night King who takes over a dead Viserion, which breaks my heart. And if something remains, then that means Viserion was forced to fight his brothers. Again, heartbreaking and terrifying. If you're still there somewhere and screaming and you can't do anything about it, that is why the Borg are terrifying. They don't kill you. They assimilate you. And you are aware of everything you're doing, but all you can do is sit there and listen to the collective. Resistance is futile. Now we're going to talk a bit about the Borg timeline. In 2365, in Star Trek The Next Generation, we have Q, who I love dearly, played by John Delancey. Q comes aboard the Enterprise, and he's basically a god. He's omnipotent. He can do anything. And he's very low-key. He has a sense of humor. He's a bit of a trickster and likes to play jokes. You never know, he might bring a mariachi band. He talks to Captain Picard and wants to hang out on the Enterprise. And Captain Picard is not feeling this at all because he knows Q. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And Q gets irritated and he's like, you have no idea what's out there. Basically saying, you could use me. And Picard's like, no, we will continue to explore as we've done this entire time. And Q said, all right, fine. And he thumps the Enterprise, and it goes 7,000 light years away into the Delta Quadrant. So the Enterprise D, a Galaxy-class starship, comes in contact with a massive cube. It is obviously some sort of spaceship. It is terrifying because everything we've ever seen as far as spaceships, they kind of, look a bit the same. So, it's usually silver or gray, usually kind of a sort of shape with where you can tell the people are, where the engines are. In Star Trek, most ships are pretty uniform if it's, the Federation. I mean, even with like Klingon battle cruisers and Romulan warbirds, you kind of get an idea of where the bridge is and then propulsion and things like that. Yeah, I know. Y'all didn't have any idea that I got this nerdy, did you? And then, in Star Wars, same thing. You look at a Star Destroyer and you kind of have an idea, all right, that's how it goes forward. That's where the people are. Not in a Borg cube. Because it's a cube. It's dark black with a green light that is unsettling. And it moves very quickly, which is also unsettling. And when the Enterprise scans it for life forms, it shows none. Now, later on, they're able to, but at this point in time, this is the first time that the Federation has officially ever been around a Borg cube. So they have no idea what's going on. They're contacted, and the classic line.
We are the Borg.
At this point, the Enterprise is being cautious, but they have no reason to think that the Borg are going to do anything to them. They try to talk to them. Doesn't go very well. They try to outrun them. That doesn't go very well. Ends up that basically Picard begs Q for help to get them the hell out of the Delta Quadrant.
You wanted to frighten us. We're frightened. You wanted to show us that we were inadequate? For the moment. I grant that. You wanted me to say, I need you. I need you!
Well, that's the thing. Now the Borg know they exist. So that's kind of sticking around in the back of your head every episode after. Like, I don't think that's the last we've seen of them. Now, I say that was the first official interaction with the Borg and the Federation because there were actually attacks by the Borg in the Alpha and the Beta quadrants. But the thing is, they left no witnesses, so nobody knew who did it. That's going to be around 2362 to 2364. So a couple years before Q thumped the Enterprise to the Delta Quadrant. So that means the Borg were out there, kind of on the outskirts, and they were effectively scooping up any civilization. That's the thing about the Borg. When they roll up, they leave nothing left. They take every single bit of technology, and you're just left with just a hole. Just nothingness. No people, nothing. It's all been taken away. So there's no way the Federation could have known the Borg were doing that because they leave nothing behind, which is also eerie. Which leads you to wonder, since Q is omnipotent, Q had to know that the Borg were already hanging out at the edge in Federation space, cruising around the neutral zone, and pretty soon we're going to get in contact with the Federation. So was Q giving them a heads up? I would say yes. A couple years later, the same Borg cube is spotted, and this time it's headed to Earth. It's even more terrifying now because I will tell you, any episode with the Borg has got the best soundtrack of any Star Trek. I know it's arguable, and some people will say, Wrath of Khan and things like that. I'm telling you, the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2, that is amazing music. I'll insert some if I can. Just know that, especially for the time period, you want to talk about fantastic sci-fi music, it's the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2. Absolutely astounding. The music was created by Ron Jones, and you can find it on Amazon. I'm telling you, it is completely eerie, especially the sound when the Borg cube shows up. It's this incredible sound of all these different voices, and it's layered, and it's just damn eerie. It's fantastic. So again, it's 2367. It's a couple years after we've seen this cube before, and it's headed to Earth. This time, when it comes across the Enterprise, it has a specific request. It wants to talk to Captain Picard, which is a bit strange because they ask for him by name, and no one really knows why. Why would the Borg care about an individual? Well, they don't. They assimilate for technology and for advancement. So why do they care about one person?
I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Jean-Luc Picard, Captain of the Starship Enterprise, Registry NCC-1701D. You will lower your shields and prepare to transport yourself aboard our vessel. If you do not cooperate, we will destroy your ship.
The Enterprise is basically hiding from the Borg cube, and when it's forced to come out of hiding, the Borg beam aboard and they take Captain Picard. When I tell you that this was like peak science fiction, he's gone. Everybody's looking around like, what do we do? The Enterprise is in pursuit. They eventually get a search party over on the Borg cube. Now, why do the Borg let a search party just come around and, basically take pictures? Because they don't see them as any threat. That's the thing with the Borg. If it's just like me and you and we're walking around a Borg cube, they don't care. Why? Because we're no threat. They only pay attention if you're in their way or they perceive you as a threat. So we have a search party hanging out on the Borg cube looking for Captain Picard. It is so cinematic. It is shot beautifully because it's like your point of view. You're looking at these Borg in front of you, and a couple of them step out of view, and you see another Borg, and he looks familiar, and he turns, and it's Captain Picard. Captain Picard has been assimilated by the Borg completely. He's got it all. He's got the ocular implant. He's got the Borg arm. He's got tubes coming in and out of him. And it's unsettling because you just look at it and like it's these big black tubes that go from like the neck to something else. And there's another one on the other side. And like from the neck down, it's just robot, synthetic. Captain Picard is a very beloved captain. He's my favorite captain, always will be. And by this point in Star Trek The Next Generation, we're attached. We're very attached to Jean-Luc Picard. And the thing about Captain Picard is he's a lot different than Captain Kirk. And I mean, obviously, you gotta love Kirk, because without Kirk, we don't have everybody else. But you got Kirk, he goes rogue, He's not afraid to kind of bend the rules, to do what he needs to do. And he always had Spock kind of like telling him, yeah, kind of get back in there, kind of do right or whatever. It's a good dynamic. Well, in Star Trek The Next Generation, Captain Jean-Luc Picard is exactly what you want the United Federation of Planets to be. He's by the book. He's fair. He is just. He's very intelligent. He's very, very much into exploration, science, different species. And Captain Picard is known to very much respect the Prime Directive, which is also known as Starfleet General Order 1. And it is a guiding principle of Starfleet that prohibits its members from interfering with the natural development of alien civilizations. As in, we do not mess with them. We do not change things. So it basically means that if they come upon a civilization that has not yet achieved warp drive, they can observe, but they cannot interfere. So we get to know Captain Picard, and we learn all of this, and you respect the man, You respect the crew respects the man.
He was the indestructible captain, untouchable, above all risk and danger. And suddenly he's a man who's been raped and has to deal emotionally with huge consequences. You see the first needle going into his forehead and a single tear rolling down his cheek.
It's Worf, Data, and Dr. Crusher. And also Shelby, which she's supposed to be a Borg expert. She irritates me. We've got Worf because strong, Data because obviously android, Dr. Crusher because medical, you never know what's going to happen. They come back to the Enterprise and they have to tell Commander Riker, who is acting captain, he's been assimilated by the Borg. And this is great acting, by the way. It really is. If you haven't watched this, please do. But Commander Riker has this look on his face. And he's trying to understand, like, what do you mean? And Worf says, he is a Borg. I just got chills because at that moment, it's like, oh my God. Not only are they terrifying and threatening to assimilate, they did. This is what they do. It is horrifying. Later on, we find out that the purpose of Captain Picard was to be a counterpart to the Borg Queen, but he resisted, which is incredibly impressive, and I don't know if anyone else could do that. But since he resisted, he was giving the designation Locutus of Borg. So after they talk to Riker, they are hailed from the Borg cube, and Riker says on screen, and there he is, larger than life on the big screen. I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
I really don't know what to compare it to be honest with you. It is one of those really great moments of TV. Because the thing is, you know, you have so many iconic characters and you see them like taken down a bad path. A lot of my friends love Anakin Skywalker. And, you know, a lot of things happen to Anakin and we end up with Vader. But the thing with Locutus of Borg is Captain Picard didn't do anything wrong. He did nothing wrong. He was doing his duty, running his ship, trying to protect his crew, and he was taken. It's heartbreaking, to be honest with you. Because you have to remember, we have no idea if he's going to stay aboard, or if he's going to live, or anything. So some absolutely fantastic acting by Jonathan Frakes. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm going to meet him this summer. You have Locutus staring at the crew through the screen. Commander Riker, acting Captain Riker, has to make a decision. And what's incredible is he looks at the screen, looks at what was his captain, his mentor, and he says fire. And then it went to commercial. And not only did it go to commercial, that was it. That was the end of the season. Can you imagine that occurring and then waiting? So Riker says fire, and they had come up with a plan to use the deflector to try to do anything to damage this Borg cube. And they give it all they have, and it does nothing. Why? Because Captain Picard knew that plan. And he tells Riker that. He tells him that he has access to all of Picard's memories. And what is eerie as hell is he refers to him as number one, which is what Captain Picard called Riker. And it's just gut-wrenching. The Borg have access to every bit of knowledge that Captain Picard has. And that is terrifying. Because the Enterprise D is a Galaxy-class starship. It's the flagship of the Federation. She is our girl. She is my favorite starship in the world. Will always be. She is elegant and fast and beautifully designed and just perfect to me. I will always love that ship. And he is the captain of the flagship. So that means he has massive amounts of tactical information. Think about if you're at war and like your absolute most knowledgeable military mind just gets taken and somehow the enemy has access to every thought he has. That means that the Borg now know the weapon capabilities of all the starships. Captain Picard is incredibly intelligent. He has a lot of experience, and those are things he knows. So, tactical information about starships, tactical information about planets. He knows the planetary defense systems. And that is really, really frightening because the Borg, they want to get to Earth. Sector 001 in the Alpha Quadrant. That's their target. Earth.
First Officer's Log, Stardate 43998.5. Our pursuit of the Borg continues on a course that will take us to the very core of the Federation. The devastation they could bring is beyond imagination.
The Enterprise is in contact with the Federation, and Admiral Hansen is the admiral that is over the fleet. He's got 40 Federation ships, and they are brought together to defend Earth and stop the Borg cube. Now, this is known as the Battle of Wolf 359. It's such a big deal that there's actually an early story outline of the episode, and it describes Wolf 359 as the worst defeat in military annals since the Spanish Armada was sunk. The Borg cube goes very fast. The Enterprise D cannot keep up with it. With these 40 ships, they know what's coming. They know it is impossible to damage a Borg cube. They've tried. And they even contacted the Klingons. And the Klingons were actually in the process of sending warships. Obviously, they wouldn't get there in time. But the Federation was so desperate, they were actually considering contacting the Romulans. The enemy of my enemy. And I think they would have. I think they would have contacted the Romulans. So, Admiral Hansen is in contact with the Enterprise as the Enterprise is making repairs and getting on her way as fast as she possibly can, but still way behind. You actually get to hear Hansen say that they've engaged the cube. Needless to say, it doesn't go well for the Federation. 39 of the 40 ships are destroyed. Admiral Hansen's last words are to Riker. The fight does not go well, Enterprise. We're attempting to withdraw and regroup. rendezvous with fleet, and it's cut off. And they are all gone. That is the Battle of Wolf 359. 11,000 people were killed or assimilated. Massive casualties. Massive. That is every Federation ship that they could get to that point in time. That is big, small, anything. And all but one were destroyed. Just to do a bit of connection, if you like Deep Space Nine, that is how Commander Sisko lost his wife. She was one of the casualties, which is why Sisko does not like Captain Picard. That's a lot there. And throughout, the Star Trek timeline, there are other people we come in contact with that either were at Wolf 359 or lost someone at Wolf 359. That goes all the way to the Picard series that we just had.
Oh, come on. You must have heard about the Battle of Wolf 359. 40 Federation starships up against one Borg cube. Yeah, I was just in engineering. Just a grease monkey. And the next second, it's like space itself was burning.
So, before all of this mess with the Borg, they actually offered Riker his own ship, the Melbourne. He turned it down. Riker did that more than once. Because if you're on the Enterprise and that crew, it would be very difficult to leave. Very difficult. And Riker struggles with that. He does. And he talks to his Imzadi, Counselor Troy, who I love dearly, and even says, do you think I'm afraid of the big chair? And she's like, no, I don't think it's that. It's because these are the Magnificent Seven. This crew, I think, is the best damn crew there was. There are too many outtakes and behind the scenes moments of those people interacting, which they still do, and having a great time. It shows. I'm telling you, you can tell that these people were friends. They still are. So, Riker turned down being captain of the Melbourne. So, when the Enterprise finally gets to Wolf 359, it is a ship's graveyard. And that is what they call it. It's actually something pretty fascinating because it's something we had never seen up to that point in Star Trek. All these different ships, all these different classes of ships, and they are just destroyed. I mean, there might be a saucer section here or some warp nacelles there, and then there's power flickering, and it's eerie because they're just floating in space. And Captain Riker, he's captain now, he tells them to search for any life signs, and there are none at all. And the music during this is also haunting and fantastic. Hell, I believe the name of the song is Ship's Graveyard. So how the hell does the Enterprise D save the day? Well, by bending a bit of the rules or doing something not quite out of the Federation playbook. The Enterprise D catches up to the Borg cube, and I believe the ship has passed Mars, because I think Mars had the planetary defense system, but They do what they can. It does nothing to the cube. Enterprise D rolls up, and an away team goes over to the Borg cube, and they capture Picard, Locutus. They bring him back over to the Enterprise D, which he is Locutus of Borg. He basically tells them that it was nonsensical to risk everything for one person, one individual. And what they do is they hook him up to this system that connects with Data. And Data is an android. And Data is using his positronic matrix, his brain, to try and get through to Jean-Luc Picard. Now, this is just incredible writing. They have Data there trying to navigate through the synthetic, the tech, to get to him. They have Dr. Crusher there because they have no idea what this is going to do to the human remaining part of Picard. And they have Counselor Troy there. Why is Counselor Troy there? Because she's an empath. She's half Betazoid. So she will be the only person that could actually tell you when you get to the man. When you are not speaking to Locutus of Borg, you are speaking to Captain Picard. I'm telling you, it's genius writing. So we have Data connected. We have Picard resisting. And Data is trying to go through. And I can just see it in my head. Processing. And Data's actually learning about the Borg while he's doing this, which is incredible information. And he's describing this. He's talking about how the Borg act as one. They're all connected. It's kind of like a hive, all these things. And he's getting obvious pushback. And hell, it even gets to the point where Locutus gets violent, and tries to, destroy it and get out of there. But Data keeps going. And hell, he's putting himself at risk because this has never been done before. And I mean, for all we know, it could fry him. And eventually, Counselor Troy can tell that's Picard. He says,
Sleep, Data.
He's exhausted.
Yes, Doctor. But if I may make a supposition, I do not believe his message was intended to express fatigue.
Now, the thing about Captain Picard and Data is that they are Kirk and Spock, which makes this very emotional because you realize, I mean, he can only get 2 words out. He's fighting. Like, you have to understand, this man has been assimilated by the Borg, like countless others, millions, and he resisted. He was going to be the counterpart to the Borg Queen. This man is so determined and strong, and he cares for people and lives so much that he fought and resisted. And now he fought to get out 2 damn words. And Data figures it out. He said sleep because he was telling him, put the Borg to sleep. Meaning, instead of trying to access their weapons or something vital, do something they wouldn't notice, they're not watching for, and wouldn't expect. Put them to sleep. So, Data is able to go into the system that tells the Borg they need to regenerate. And see, they don't. They don't need to regenerate. He gets that through, and because they're not supposed to regenerate and they start doing that, it overloads the system. Here's the thing. They have no idea what's going to happen to Picard when the cube blows up. So there's another risk. Obviously, they have to do it, and they do. And you can see, again, this is incredible acting with Patrick Stewart. He's got all these things over him. Like, he's got this massive amount of makeup on. He's white colored and chalky. He's got something covering his eye. He's got tubes coming out of him. He's a Borg. And he's got one arm. The other one has the Borg appendage on it. And when the Borg cube regenerates and starts to blow up and then finally does, like, he's taken aback. You can tell that, like, he's just been disconnected. And you're just watching, you're like, oh, is he going to be okay? Because, I mean, we're very invested in this. And he's alright. Mostly. And that is a very interesting part of Picard's life that bleeds through from that point on. Because you find out, oh gosh, through the movies and later on in the Picard series, that he was a passenger to his own life. There's even a scene where he's Locutus of Borg and you hear Picard screaming inside his own head. I'm telling you, the Borg are terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And he obviously has guilt and PTSD. Massive amounts of PTSD. And it takes a while even to get all the implants out of him. And there's also some weird side effects later on. When they encounter the Borg in the movies, Picard can actually hear them. Which actually helps him destroy another cube, but still, it's eerie as hell.
This is Captain Picard of the Enterprise. I'm taking command of the fleet. Target all of your weapons onto the following coordinates. Fire at my command.
Sir, the coordinates you have indicated do not appear to be a vital system.
Trust me, Data.
In my humble opinion, the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2 are peak Borg. They're frightening, they're mysterious, and the more mysterious a villain is, the more imagination you use. And it's basically like Hitchcock said, that a scream behind a closed door is more terrifying than anything you could put on a show on television. Which I'm paraphrasing, but the point is, the imagination can create the most terrifying things you can think of, basically. And that was cool about the Borg. Now, after that, in 2368, the Enterprise encounters a crashed scout ship. And there is a drone, third of 5. And he survived. They take him back to the Enterprise. He's not connected to the collective. So he starts to become an individual. And his name is Hugh. Hugh the Borg. There's a moral dilemma here. So we have Hugh. And we have Jean-Luc Picard, who just went through absolute hell and back. And he shows some anger towards Hugh. And they talk about infecting Hugh with a virus and sending him back to the Borg. They don't do it. What they do is almost as damaging, but a lot of people have a hard time understanding why Jean-Luc Picard would send Hugh back to the Borg without infecting him with a virus that would end the Borg, or, something close to that. Number one, I don't think Star Trek wanted to lose its greatest current villain. But number two, everything I said about Jean-Luc Picard and the Prime Directive and just being who he is, a life is a life, and he struggles with that. And in the end, Hugh chose a name. Hugh said I and not we, and he sent him back.
You are Borg. You will assist us.
I will not.
What did you say?
I will not assist you.
Now, a year later, we find out what happened with all that. So Hugh goes back to his Borg cube and effectively melts down the collective. His individuality did not go well with the Borg and just basically jacked them up real bad. Now, if you watch Star Trek The Next Generation, you're aware of how incredibly talented Brent Spiner is. So talented that he plays, I don't know how many iterations of himself. Let's see, he's Data. He's also Data's brother, Lore. He is also his father, Noonien Soong. In Picard, he also plays another Soong. So I guess that's 4. Seems like I'm missing one at some point, but there's at least 4 versions. Oh, that B4. Ha, that's funny. B4 is the android that came before Lore. Get it? Clever, right? So that's 5. Lore is Data's evil twin. He is the brother that came before, and he has emotions where Data does not. Lore was too uncanny valley, and the people that lived around him found him creepy, and he just wasn't quite right, got disassembled, got put back together, and he's mad about it. Well, he comes across this half broke down Borg cube with these individuals that are totally confused, or they need a leader, basically. So he decides to be that leader. It's not my favorite because the Borg aren't scary. Now, Brent Spiner's fantastic in the episodes. It's a 2-part. The Enterprise D shows up, obviously, and saves the day and removes Lore. And so you have these rogue Borg that are just kind of out there doing their thing. And what that does is it takes away the mystery. It just makes them less scary. Now we're going to talk about Voyager, which is my second favorite Star Trek series. The Enterprise D encounters Hugh and the jacked up collective in 2369. Voyager encounters the Borg in 2373. So not very much long after. But they're on their way back to the Alpha Quadrant. So let me give you a little side note about another villain. Species 8472. The Borg give species a number. That's it. They just call them 4289 6174 123. So 8472 is actually pretty damn creepy. They're non-humanoid, and they're from a dimension called fluidic space. Don't worry about that. You don't have to understand it. Just know that they are considered the apex of biological evolution. They have 3 legs, and they are 3 meters tall. They are creepy looking. The 3rd leg is unsettling, as is their face. If I had to try to describe them to you, if you took the aliens from the movie Signs, like how they're tall and creepy, and then maybe mixed in a little bit of the aliens from Independence Day in the face, which oddly enough, Brent Spiner is in Independence Day. If you do that and you give them like a back leg, you get something kind of like that. Not anything you really want to hang out with. And they're telepathic. So their ships are actually made out of living organic matter, and they're resistant to conventional weaponry. So that's not great for the Borg. And what's crazy is their living matter ships are actually capable of destroying a Borg cube. So the Borg are not big fans of species 8472. And 8472 is slowly destroying the Borg. So, Captain Janeway, who is awesome, has information that would help the Borg fight 8472. The thing is, though, the Borg, all they know is assimilate. She contacts them, and they bring her and Tuvok over. And she basically says, look, I've got information on 8472. Here's a little sample of it so you know I'm not full of shit. And, oh, by the way, I'm not going to give you all the information until we're through Borg space because I don't trust you. And the Borg are basically like, they're kicking our ass right now. So we don't have that kind of time. So they do have a agreement, a temporary peace. And the Borg want to plug Janeway and Tuvok in so that they can be more productive and they don't have to speak verbally. And Janeway's like, no, we are not doing that. So, in order to communicate, they choose a drone to speak to the humans. And if you haven't guessed, that Borg is 7 of 9. 7 of 9 has an interesting story. Her parents actually did something pretty damn sketchy. It's the classic story of scientists that are so into what they're studying, they become obsessed, and they go too far. So, all the way back in 2353, you have this couple, the Hansons. So, they become fascinated with the rumors of the Borg, and they're exobiologists. And they actually brought their daughter, Annika, on a mission to the Romulan neutral zone. They disobeyed Starfleet, and they actually broke Federation law by going rogue. They found a Borg ship, and they actually followed it through a transwarp conduit. Yeah, they did. They were actually able to study the Borg for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And then the Borg found them, and they were assimilated. The interesting thing about Annika is that since she was a kid, she was placed in a maturation chamber. Side note, there was actually a Borg baby in the Next Generation. I think that was so damn creepy, they scrapped that and said that if any children were to be assimilated, they were put in a maturation chamber until they're 18. So, Borg baby was creepy. Or you could just say, that one Borg cube that had the Borg babies was doing its own thing. Whatever you prefer. So, Annika is placed in a maturation chamber, and she eventually became 7 of 9, tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. That's all she's ever known. She was pretty young when the Borg assimilated her parents, so she doesn't have a lot of memories. So that is the droid that is chosen to work with Janeway and Tuvok in order to get through Borg space. And not shockingly, once they get through Borg space, the Borg turn on them. But Janeway already knew they were going to do that. And she ends up getting out of there and disconnecting 7 of 9 from the collective. And she slowly adjusts and becomes a member of the crew over a long period of time. And there's a whole lot of issues that she goes through, obviously. And I think it's very well done, and I think she's a fantastic character. Now, I don't think 7 of 9 takes anything away from the creepiness of the Borg. I don't. I think the Borg really creepy in Best of Both Worlds. Then we went kind of sideways with Hugh and all the touchy-feely stuff. And then we get 7 of 9 and we see how absolutely horrific it is to be a person that was never allowed to be a person. And there's lots of episodes where 7 has flashbacks, or she has somebody messing with her head and she sees a Borg cube, she hears them and all that stuff. And just seeing her work through discovering her individuality keeps the Borg terrifying as hell. And the Borg screwing over Janeway and being creepy and scary and it being terrifying to go through Borg space keeps them creepy. I'm good with it. And then we get to the series Picard. Yes, there's some stuff that's in the Star Trek movies, but I'm mostly talking about show and series and big events. Like there's some stuff about going back in time and Zephyr Cochrane and stuff like that. I don't really feel the need to get into that. If you want to hear that, just tell me. I'll be happy to, but I just don't know how many people want to talk about Zephyr Cochrane and First Contact. If anybody wants to talk about Vulcans and First Contact, let me know. So, the series Picard, 3 seasons. Season 1 and Season 2, I was not fond of. I wasn't. I will admit. And they said, when they announced that Picard was going to be a series, that it would not be a continuation of The Next Generation. Which that kind of hurt. But they said there would be guest stars. So that was good. Well, Season 1 and Season 2 didn't do that great. And unlike Game of Thrones, Picard decided to end the series and actually give the fans what they wanted. No more subverting expectations. And Picard ended exactly the way I would have wanted it to. With my favorite crew all together and my favorite ship, the Enterprise D, safely docked at a museum where it will remain. And I have peace with that. Yeah, I get attached. Here's the thing about Picard. So, this is in the future, obviously. Well, in the future of the future. This is about 2399. So, a cube that assimilated a Romulan vessel suffered a sub-matrix collapse, and it was captured by the Romulan Empire. So, just basically know the Romulan Empire, bad, captured a broke-down Borg cube. Not great. Blah, blah, blah. They go through a lot. The best thing I can tell you about it is that my dude, Captain Riker, shows up with the fleet and scares the shit out of the Romulans. That's like the best thing about it, basically. And he makes pizza. That too. Did I mention I'm meeting Jonathan Frakes this summer?
General or Commodore or whatever you're calling yourself, right now I'm on the bridge of the toughest, fastest, most powerful ship Starfleet has ever put into service. And I've got a fleet of them at my back. We've got our phasers locked on your warp cores, and nothing would make me happier than you giving me an excuse to kick your treacherous Talsiar ass.
In 2401, a lot of stuff happens. Captain Picard has a son. There is a Borg queen that wants to assimilate Picard's son. It happens for a minute. He fights against it. It's a whole lot of stuff. You don't really have to know. Just know that the Enterprise D got to maneuver inside a Borg cube and move in ways that we'd never seen before, because in the 90s and the 80s, CGI wasn't anywhere what it is now. So it was really kick-ass to see the Enterprise D maneuver in that manner. And basically, they save everyone and defeat the Borg once and for all. Okay? I just saved you a lot. If that's interesting to you, watch Picard. Get through season 1 and 2 and enjoy season 3. Now, all of that information to say, Gene Roddenberry, insanely talented man, and the people that worked with him. And you have the Borg, and they're terrifying. But the more we get to know them, the less terrifying they are. And they were put in films, and they were put in multiple series, and then you just kind of get, kind of worn out about it. Well, here's my opinion. So right now, Star Trek doesn't have a huge presence, which is sad. Strange New Worlds is great. That's a really good show. If you like Star Trek, you should watch that. If you like sci-fi, you should watch it. Discovery was canceled. They just had a movie about Section 31, which is the it's like the Federation CIA. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't see it. I watched a couple of reviews, and they were not great. There's an upcoming show, and it's about Starfleet Academy, which is obviously where you go to learn to be an officer. But see, it's set way far in the future. The way far future, like Star Trek Discovery, and that doesn't interest me. There's one cool thing about it. The Doctor from Voyager is going to be in it, which I think is neat. And it makes sense because he's a hologram. And they'll probably do something where he chooses to look older. They did that with Q, and it was fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know. I just don't have that same feeling about Star Trek that I used to. But I do have some suggestions. If anybody wants to tell anybody, I think it would be incredibly interesting if they did a Star Trek series that doesn't necessarily focus on the Federation. I would like to see a series on the beginning of the Borg. I think it could be really damn cool. Just think about it. It's a planet, it's a civilization similar to ours, and you see them over time start to use cybernetics more, and eventually too much. Then you start having people saying, you know, we could be more perfect, more perfect, more perfect. And all of a sudden, you go from a humanoid species to a terrifying Borg collective. I think that'd be great. The other thing you could do is you could also have the Borg, and you could also explain how they ended up with a Borg queen. Because she's a different species than the initial species the Borg are. They encountered a different species and ended up with a queen somehow. See, there's a lot of gaps in between. Hell, you could even throw Q in there. Because Q was aware of the Borg the entire time. You can put the Q collective there. I don't know. I'm just saying. I think there's a lot more there. And I think it'd be really damn interesting. So, just in case anybody with the last name Roddenberry's listening to this, or somebody knows somebody, hey, if you take my idea, would you at least put my name on it? Because that'd be great. But that is my story of the Borg and my favorite parts, and how I think there's still plenty to be told. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know if you did, because there's lots of fandoms that I'm very interested in, and a lot more Star Trek. And I would love to talk about that. So if you enjoyed it, let me know. And I'll see you guys next time. As always, it's Amanda here to say thank you to all of our listeners, and to ask that if you like this week's episode, leave us an honest rating. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please feel free to comment on our post over at our Girls Nerd Out podcast account on Instagram. If you're interested in buying any of our merch to support the podcast, then check it out over at girlsnerdoutpodcast.com. Our podcast merch was put together by me, myself, and I at Southern Mother of Dragons on all social media. If you're interested in my personal merch, check it out at southernmotherofdragons.com. And the designs for that merch were put together by Ryuchi Studios on Etsy after an in-depth back and forth discussion with me to find the perfect merch for me and my loyal supporters. The music played while I tell you about all the ways you can support us and the production of the podcast is Kawaii Girl by Pumpkin Pie. Thanks for listening.